A few weeks ago, I shared the top foods that I started eating that really helped to just improve my overall body fat percentage and breakouts and bloating. But today I wanted to share what's equally as important, and those are the foods that I also removed that had just as much of an effect on my bloating, my breakout, and my body fat percentage goals. All right guys, if you're new to my channel and you don't know who I am, my name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance. On my channel, I'm typically talking about the science back and holistic methods that you can use in order to achieve your wellness dreams. So if you have a wellness goal in mind, make sure you subscribe. All right, so let's dive into that first food, and this is tortilla chips. When I was in college, I was training for the LA Marathon, and there were a lot of times where I would make a really big bowl of nachos after training. And I would tell myself they were healthy nachos, that they had black beans and cheese and lettuce and salsa, and that it was okay because I was running, so it just all evened out. It always tasted great, duh, because they're nachos, but I never, and I repeat, never felt good after eating it. Now, after college, I had a slightly more reasonable approach to tortilla chips. I would have them here and there while I was cooking or as a snack to go along with my lunch. And more often than not, it was usually eaten in between meals, which and peeps, you already know, big no-no. But upon my realization of the migrating motor complex and its impact on bloating, and especially since that's something I've really struggled with in the past is bloating, I decided to remove all snacks and just stick to meals. Now that inherently meant that I already cut out a lot of the chips I was eating because they were always eaten between those meals. Unless you're making a big bowl of nachos, usually tortilla chips are not the main source of food for your meal. And although it was greatly reduced, I still was having it. I mean, we pretty much always had some tortilla chips at the house. We would have it dipped in guacamole to go along with our chili, or even just dipped in the chili, or maybe as a side when we would make tacos. And although my bloating improved a lot once I started to not have those snacks in between meals because I was able to stimulate that migrating motor complex, which if you're unsure what that is, I have a video that breaks this down right here. I still was getting bloated, and I noticed it was specifically around certain meals, especially those when I had tortilla chips with it. Now, I've never fully cut out tortilla chips from my diet because it is something, especially being in Southern California, that you typically have when you go out to eat and have guacamole. And as you guys know, I'm a really big believer in incorporating some type of treat meal structure so that you never are completely just getting rid of foods, especially if it's something that you really love, and even though it might not be something in line with your goals, incorporating it on the occasion can actually be helpful for your goals because of that longevity approach. But I decided to cut it up during the week. So Monday through Friday or Sunday through Thursday, I was not going to have any tortilla chips and just keep it to a weekend type of treat, or that one day a week type of treat meal structure. And my main driving reason why I decided to do this is because although I liked using the tortilla chips, it always made me feel bad. It always caused bloating. It never made me feel comfortable. And that was something that I just was not willing to sacrifice, was how I felt in order to eat a few tortilla chips. But something really crazy happened, that not only when I stopped eating the tortilla chips on a regular basis, my bloating went down, which was something I knew would happen, but so did my body fat percentage. And it's important to keep in mind, this wasn't necessarily my weight that went down, but my body fat percentage that did. So this means more muscle mass, less body fat, which ultimately is what we're looking for when we're looking to achieve a weight loss goal. It's not necessarily weight loss. Yes, to some degree there is that depending on where you're at in your journey, but it's also making sure that you can decrease the body fat and not decrease your muscle mass. Now, this decrease in body fat percentage was not my intention, but it does make sense. Tortilla chips are very low satiating and higher insulin producing types of foods. And this means that you get that big spike of the storing hormone insulin, which shuts off fat burning, or the process called lipolysis, while also not feeling satisfied whatsoever. And that's why when I would go to a Mexican restaurant, it was very easy to go through an entire bowl of tortilla chips and still be able to eat my main meal, because those tortilla chips have nothing that really is going to cause that increased sense of satiety or fullness. But it does have that increased sense of insulin, increased response of insulin that's going to cause your body to be in that fat storing mode. All right, the second is bread. Now, I studied abroad in Italy. I grew a big fondness for bread and pastas, and pizza for that matter. And I came back from this study abroad program roughly the same weight, but I could see and feel with my clothes that I definitely increased my body fat. My clothes didn't fit the same way. And again, although my weight didn't really change, it would appear that my body fat percentage went up and muscle mass likely went down. I never did a test, but just from how my clothes fit, it's likely what happened. Now this, just like with the tortilla chips, makes sense because bread is going to have that really big insulin response with a very low satiety response, which means you get that big storing mode response with very little satiation or sense of fullness. And because I was eating a lot more wheat products, bread, pasta, pizza when I was studying abroad in Italy, I mean, it's college, my body composition when I got back shifted to more of that increased body fat versus that decreased body fat, increased lean muscle mass. Not to mention, it's very easy to eat a lot of bread because of that low satiety index. Okay, number 3, healthy junk food. Okay, so this can really depend on where you live, but especially here in LA where I'm from, there's a lot of these healthy junk food items that are available. I mean, they get this health halo effect where they're deemed as less bad for you than the traditional sources, which is true. Just to give an example, you could use like a Snickers bar, which of course is going to have a really big rush of an insulin response because of the blood glucose levels, versus the healthier treat item, which is dark chocolate that has a date mixture that's in the middle. That option is always going to be the better option versus the refined sugar source of something like a Snickers bar, or really any candy bar for that matter. But it does not mean that these healthy junk food items should not be treated as a treat. It still is a higher sugar containing food, and although it is a better option, it does not mean that it's a good option on a daily basis. But especially if these are very prevalent to you and you see them all over, it's easy to be seduced by the fact that these might still be in line with your goals, even though they do contain higher levels of sugar. And since these are perceived as a healthier option, it's easy to misconstrue them as a healthy option or an option that is in line with your wellness goals. And this was definitely the trap that I was in at the time too. I would eat one of these healthier treats almost every day, and yet I would still be confused why I didn't feel great after them. Be like, hey, it's healthier. Why do I not feel fantastic? I would still experience a slight raise in energy level and then that dip in energy level that's pretty typical of when you eat a more dense source of sugar. And so when I removed these from my daily routine, not saying again that they're a bad source, they're definitely a better source if you are going to have some type of treat. But once I removed it from my daily routine of having these treats on the daily, I felt a lot better. My energy levels were a lot more stable. And weirdly enough, I stopped craving them, which sugar has this cyclical effect regardless of where the sugar is coming from. If it's a more dense source of sugar, it's going to have more of that pleasure response when you have more sugar. And that causes even more of a drive to have even more of that food source. It essentially acts as a positive feedback loop. The more of these sugars that you have, or at least more dense sources of sugars like these healthy types of desserts, the more of it that your body craves. And it works in the opposite way too. The less of it that you eat, the less you crave it. This is something super common that a lot of people who follow the 7-day IF detox tend to report back, is that they have zero sugar cravings. And as we know, those sugar cravings are going to be some of the biggest drivers to not being able to achieve our wellness goals. When you have sugar cravings that are actively working against you, it's making it so that you're going to get this decision fatigue to basically always have to tell yourself no. But when you don't crave it as often, when you're eating until satiated, when you're eating enough of the right types of foods and not having these daily sources of dense sources of sugar, even if it is from a healthier source, you're not going to crave it as much and you won't have to tell yourself no as often. And then that means you can really enjoy it on the times that you do choose to have it, rather than feeling like you always need to have it. Now, if I choose to have some type of sugary treat, if it's some type of celebration, or if it's that one day a week type of treat meal that we've talked about before, I will still choose one of these healthier dessert options versus something that's more dense like a traditional candy bar. It's still a better option, it's just not something to be had on the daily. Speaking of on the daily, popcorn, because this is something for a long time that I was having on the daily. My mom makes incredible popcorn, and my fiance picked up the trick on how to make that very, very good popcorn. And popcorn is one of those food items that it's very difficult to eat 5 kernels. I mean, I don't really know anyone who doesn't go through a whole bowl if it's sitting in front of you, because it has such a low satiety index, meaning it's so easy to just sit and eat handful after handful. And then I would always be so confused on why I felt so bloated and icky after eating a whole bowl of popcorn. And it was crazy because the popcorn had such a big effect on how I felt with my bloating that even if I had it the night before, I would still feel excessively bloated all the way through mid-morning, sometimes afternoon the next day. Now, around the same time I decided to just keep the tortilla chips to some type of weekend treat is also when I decided to do the same with popcorn. And this combination helped to really greatly reduce the bloating that I would feel the next morning. Okay, number 5, protein bars. The classic AN video. If you're not new to the AN peeps and you're well aware of my concern with protein bars in general, even the quote unquote healthier options, protein bars regardless are still going to promote that snacking activity, which means that you are not really ever going to be eating until satiated. That means you're not going to get that stimulation of the migrating motor complex, and that means that it can lead to issues with the bloating because your GI tract was not able to sweep out that left behind food and bacteria. Now, removing protein bars, especially because it was something that I did use quite a bit of in college, was one of the big big puzzle pieces that was really important for helping me to reduce my bloating, because by removing it, it really did help to further enhance my ability to focus on the meal structure rather than the snacks, and therefore turn on the migrating motor complex. In fact, if you want this full breakdown, because there is a little bit more to this on why I don't recommend protein bars, I highly recommend you check out this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out with new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.